Hey guys, I hope everybody's good. Still missing you guys terribly. Hope everybody had a great Mother's Day with their moms, grandmas, or whoever is your primary guardian at this time, right? You showed love to some mother in your life, no matter what form she may be, right? Adopted mom, mother, grandmother, maybe an aunt. Noah treated me very well for Mother's Day. I gotta brag on him for a minute, right? He treated me to Johnny Carino's for lunch. We watched church online, did that, and then we had a picnic lunch on the Red River in Pineville. So we had a great Mother's Day, and I got to spend some time with my mom and my little sister and my nieces for the day. Um, so when we left with our book last time, uh, Tuck was going to she had breakfast and spent the day together, and then Tuck was going to, Winnie wanted answers. And Tuck felt like it was time to tell her everything that was going on, all the secrets. And so that's kind of where we left off. They were getting ready to get on the pond, right? Take a ride in the boat so that they could have their conversation, because he kind of felt like that was the best place to have it. So tonight we're going to read chapters 12, 13, and 14. Chapter 12. The sky was a ragged blaze of red and pink and orange, and its double trembled on the surface of the pond like colors spilled from a paint box. The sun was dropping fast now, a soft red sliding egg yolk, and already to the east there was a darkening to purple. Winnie, newly brave with her thoughts of being rescued, climbed boldly into the rowboat. The hard heels of her buttoned boots made a hollow banging sound against the wet boards, loud in the warm and breathless quiet. Across the pond, a bullfrog spoke a deep note of warning. Tuck climbed in too, pushing off and settling the oars into the locks, dipped them into the silty bottom in one strong pull. The rowboat slipped from the bank then, silently, and glided out, tall water grasses whispering away from its sides, releasing it. Here and there the still surface of the water dimpled, and bright rings spread noisily and vanished. "Feeding time," said Tuck softly, and Winnie, looking down, saw a host of tiny insects skittering and skating on the surface. "Best time for all the fishing, when they come up to feed." He dragged on the oars. The rowboat slowed and began to drift gently toward the furthest end of the pond. It was so quiet that Winnie almost jumped when the bullfrog spoke again, and then from the tall pines and birches that ringed the pond, a wood thrush caroled. The silver notes were pure and clear and lovely. "Know what that is, all around us, Winnie?" said Tuck in his voice low. "Life, moving, growing, changing, never the same 2 minutes together. This water, you look at it every morning and it looks the same, but it ain't. All night long it's been moving, coming in through the stream back there to the west, slipping out through the stream down east here, always quiet, always new, moving on. You can't hardly see the current, can you? And sometimes the wind makes it look like it's going the other way. But it's always there. The water's always moving on, and someday, after a long while, it comes to the ocean." They drifted in silence for a time. The bullfrog spoke again. From behind them, far back in some reedy, secret place, another bullfrog answered. In the fading light, the trees along the banks were slowly losing their dimensions, flattening into silhouettes clipped from the black paper and pasted to the paling sky. The voice of a different frog, hoarser and not so deep, croaked from the nearest bank. Oh, I'd have been off that boat, right? Frogs all around. "Know what happens then?" said Tuck. "To the water? The sun sucks some of it right out of the ocean and carries it back into the clouds, and then it rains, and the rain falls into the stream, and the stream keeps moving on, taking it all back again. It's a wheel, Winnie. Everything's a wheel, turning and turning, never stopping. The frogs is part of it, and the bugs and the fish and the wood thrush too, and people. But never the same ones. Always coming in new, always growing and changing, and always moving on. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it is." The rowboat had drifted at last to the end of the pond, but now its bow bumped into the rotting branches of a fallen tree that thrust thick fingers into the water. And though the current pulled at it, dragging its stern sideways, the boat was wedged and could not follow. The water slid past it, out between clumps of reeds and brambles, and gurgled down the narrow bed, over stones and pebbles, foaming a little, moving softly now after its slow trip between the pond's wide banks. And further down, when he could see that it hurried into the curve around the leaning willow and disappeared. It goes on, Tuck repeated to the ocean. But this rowboat now, it's stuck. If we didn't move it ourselves, it would stay there forever, trying to get loose, but stuck. That's what us Tucks are, Winnie. Stuck, so we can't move on. We ain't part of the wheel no more. Dropped off, Winnie. Life behind, and everywhere around us, things is moving and growing and changing. You, for instance, a child now, but someday a woman. And after that, moving on to make room for the new children. Winnie blinked, and all at once her mind was drowned with understanding of what he was saying. For yes, even she would go back out of the world willy-nilly someday. Just go out like a flame of a candle, and no use protesting. It was a certainty. She would try very hard not to think of it, but sometimes, and now, it would be forced upon her. She raged against it, helpless and insulted, and blurted out at last, "I don't want to die." "Nope," said Tuck calmly. "Not now. Your time's not now. But dying's part of the wheel. Right there next to being born. You can't pick out the pieces you like and leave the rest. Being part of the whole thing, that's the blessing. But it's passing us by, us Tucks, leaving heavy work, but off to one side. The way we are, it's useless, too. It don't make sense. If I'd knowed how to climb back on the wheel, I'd do it in a minute. You can't have living without dying. So you can't call it living, what we got. We just are. We just be, like rocks beside the road." Tuck's voice was rough now, and Winnie, amazed, sat rigid. No one had ever talked to her of things like this before. "I want to grow again," he said fiercely, "and change. And if that means I gotta move on at the end of it, then I want that too. Listen, Winnie, it's something you don't find out how you feel until afterwards. If people knowed about the spring down there in Tree Gap, they'd all come running like pigs to slop. They'd trample each other trying to get some of the water. That'd be bad enough, but afterwards, can you imagine? All the little ones little forever, all the old ones old forever. Can you picture what that means? Forever? The wheel would keep on going round, the water rolling by the ocean. The people would have turned into nothing but rocks by the side of the road, 'cause they wouldn't know till after, and then it'd be too late." He peered at her, and when he saw that his face was pinched with the efforts of explaining, "Do you see now, child? Do you understand? Oh, Lord, I just gotta make you understand." There was a long, long moment of silence, Winnie, struggling with the anguish of all these things, could only sit hunched and numb, the sound of the water rolling in her ears. It was black and silky now. It lapped at the sides of the rowboat and hurried on around the stream. And then, down the length of the pond, a voice rang out. It was Miles, and every word across the water came clearly to their ears. "Pa, Pa, come back! Something's happened, Pa! The horse is gone! Can you hear me? Someone stole the horse!" Sometime later, the man in the yellow suit slipped down from the saddle and tied the Tuck's old horse to a board of the forester's fence. He stole their horse. He tried the gate. It was unlocked. He pushed through and strode up the path to the door of the cottage. Though it was very late now, almost midnight, the windows glowed golden. The family had not gone to bed. The man in the yellow suit took off his hat and smoothed his hair with his long white fingers. Then he knocked at the door. It was opened at once by his grandmother, and before she could speak, the man said quickly, "Good evening. May I come in? I have happy news for you. I know where they've taken your little girl. I knew he was going to end up turning out to be a shady little character. Chapter 14. There had been nothing for the Tucks to do but go to bed. It was too dark now to go out looking for the horse thief, and anyway, they had no idea when he had done his thieving or which way he had gone. That beats all, though, don't it, Pa? Said Jessie, coming up to a person's house and stealing their horse right in front of their right out from under their nose. I gotta give you that, said Tuck. But the question is, was it just some ordinary thief, or was it someone that had some special reason? I don't like it. I get a bad feeling about the whole thing. Hush now, Tuck, said May. She was spreading a quilt on the old sofa, making it into a bed for Winnie. You're too much of a worrier. There's nothing we can do about it now, and there's no such fussing. No sense fussing. You got no reason to think there's anything peculiar about it anyway. Come on. We'll get a good night's sleep and figure it out in the morning when we're fresh. Boys, up you go. Don't get talking. You'll keep us awake. Winnie, child, you bed down too. You'll sleep first rate on this sofa here. But Winnie didn't sleep at all, not for a long, long time. The cushions of the sofa were remarkably lumpy and smelled like old newspapers, and the chair pad May had given her for a pillow was thin and horrid and rough under her cheek. But far worse than this was the fact that she was still in her clothes, for she had firmly refused the offer of May's spare nightgown, with its seeming miles of faded cotton flannel. Only her own nightgown would do, and the regular bedtime routine. Without them, she was painfully lonely for home. Her joy on the road that morning had completely disappeared. The wide world shrank, and her oldest fears rode freely in her consciousness. It was unbelievable that she should be in this place. It was an outrage, but she was helpless to do anything about it, helpless to control it, and exhausted by the conversation in the rowboat. Was it true? Could they really never die, these Tucks? It had evidently not occurred to them that she might not believe it. They were only concerned that she kept the secret. Well, she did not believe it. It was nonsense, wasn't it? Well, wasn't it? Winnie's head whirled. Remembering the man in the yellow suit was the only thing that kept her from weeping. He's told them by now, she thought. They've been looking for me for hours, but they don't know where to look. No. The man saw which way they were headed. Papa will find me. They're out looking for me right now. She went over it again, lying wrapped in the quilt, while outside the moon rose, turning the pond to silver. There was a hint of mist, now that the air was cooler, and the frogs talked comfortably. Why do they have to keep talking about frogs in this book? Crickets soon joined in with their shrill, rhythmic song. In the table drawer, the mouse rustled softly, enjoying the supper of flapjack crumbs May had left there for them. And at last these things were clear in Winnie's ears. Then the voice of her thoughts. She began to relax, listening to the sound-filled silence, and just as she was drifting into sleep, she heard soft footsteps, and May was beside her. You resting easy, child? She whispered. I'm all right, thank you. I'm sorry about everything, said May. I just didn't know any other way but to bring you back with us. I know it ain't happy for you here, but... Well, anyway, you have a good talk with Tuck? I guess so. That's good. Well, I'm going back to bed. Get a good sleep. All right, said Winnie. But still May lingered. We've been alone so long, she said at last. I guess we don't know how to do with visitors. But still in all, it's a good feeling you being here with us. I wish you was ours. She put out an awkward hand then and touched Winnie's hair. Well, she said, good night. Good night, said Winnie. Tuck came to a little later and peered down at her anxiously. He was wearing a long white nightshirt, and his hair was rumpled. Oh, he said, you still awake? Everything all right? Yes, said Winnie. I didn't mean to go disturbing you, but I'd be laying in there thinking I ought to be sitting out here with you till you went to sleep. You don't have to do that, said Winnie. I'm all right. He looked uncertain. Well, but if you want something, will you holler? I'm just in the next room. I'll be out here like a shot. And then he added gruffly, it's been quite a while since we've had a natural growing girl in our house. His voice trailed off. Well, try to get some sleep. That sofa there, I guess it ain't the kind of thing you're used to. It's fine, said Winnie. The bed's no better, or I'd switch with you, he said. He didn't seem to know how to finish the conversation. But then he bit and kissed her quickly on the cheek and was gone. Winnie lay with her eyes wide awake. She felt cared for and confused. And all at once she wondered what would happen to the Tucks when her father came. What would he do to them? She would never be able to explain how they had been with her, how they made her feel. She remembered guiltily that at supper she had decided they were criminals. Well, but they were. And yet, then her final visitor made her confusion complete. There was a creaking on the loft stairs, and Jessie was looking down at her, very beautiful and eager in the faint blue moonlight. Hey, Winnie Foster, he said, you asleep? This time she sat up, pulling the quilt around her in a sudden embarrassment, and answered, No, not yet. Well, then listen. He knelt beside her, his curls tumbled into his eyes wide. I've been thinking it over. Paul's right about you having to keep this secret. It's not hard to see why. But the thing is, you knowing about the water already and living right next to it shows you could go there any time. Well, listen, how'd it be if you was to wait till you're 17, same age as me? Heck, that's only 6 years off. And then you could go back and drink some. And then you could go away with me. We could get married even. That'd be pretty good, wouldn't it? We could have a grand old time going all around the world seeing everything. Listen, Ma and Paul Miles, they don't know how to enjoy it, what we got. Why, heck, Winnie, life's to enjoy yourself, isn't it? What else is it good for? That's what I say. And you and me, we could have a good time that never, never stopped. Wouldn't that be something? Once more, Winnie adored him, kneeling there beside her in the moonlight. He wasn't crazy. How could he be? He was just amazing. But she was struck dumb. All she could do was stare at him. Oh, you think on it, Winnie Foster. Jessie appeared earnestly. Think on it and see if it don't sound good. Anyway, I'll see you in the morning, all right? All right, she managed to whisper in return. He slipped away then, back to the creaking steps, but Winnie sat upright, wide awake, her cheeks burning. She could not deal with the remarkable suggestions. She could not think on it, for she didn't know what to believe about anything. She lay down again finally and stared into the moonlight for another half an hour before she fell asleep. I think we're going to read chapter 15. In Tree Gap, the same moonlight silvered the roof of the Touch-Me-Not cottage, but inside the lamps were burning. That's right, said the man in the yellow suit. I know where she is. He sat back in his chair in the Foster's spotless parlor, crossing his long, thin legs, and the suspended foot began a rhythmic jiggling. He hung his hat on his knee and smiled, his eyes nearly closed. I followed them, you see. She's with them now. As soon as I saw they arrived at their destination, I turned around and came directly back. I thought you'd be staying up. You've been looking for her all day, of course. It must be quite a worry. He lifted a hand again, ignoring their exclamations, and began to smooth the thin hairs of his beard. You know, he said thoughtfully, I've come a long way looking for a wood exactly like the one you've got next door. It would mean a great deal to me to own it, and how pleasant to have neighbors like yourselves. Now understand, I wouldn't cut down many of the trees. I'm no barbarian, you can say that. No, just a few. You wouldn't find it different at all, really. He gestured with his long white fingers and smiled, his face crinkling pleasantly. We'd be good friends, I think. Why, the little girl and I were friends already. It would be a great relief to see her safely home again, wouldn't it? He clicked his tongue and frowned. Dreadful thing, kidnapping. Isn't it fortunate that I was a witness? Why, without me, you might never have heard a word. They're rough country people, the ones that took her. There's just no telling what illiterates like that might do. Yes, he sighed, lifting his eyebrows and smiling again. It looks as if I'm the only person in the whole wide world who knows where to find her. He's tricky. He's going to ask for something in return, I think, for showing them where she is. And then the man in the yellow hat sat forward. His face took on a horrid expression. Now, I don't have to spell things out for people like yourselves. Some types one comes across can't seem to cut their way through any problem. And that does make things difficult. But you, I don't have to explain the situation to you. I've got what you want. You've got what I want. Of course, you might find that child without me, but you might find her in time. So, I want the wood and you want the child. Is it a trade? A simple, clear-cut trade. That little shripple. He looked around at the three shocked faces, and as if he were seeing nothing there but calm agreement, he smiled delightfully and rubbed his hands together. Done and done, he said. I knew right away. I said to myself, now here's a group of intelligent, reasonable people. I'm seldom wrong as a judge of character, very seldom disappointed. So, all that remains is to write it up on paper, giving me the wood, and you sign it. It's best, don't you agree, to keep things legal and tidy? Do y'all think they're going to give up the wood? It'll be interesting. The rest is easy, nothing to it. You go for your local constable, and he and I ride out and bring back the child and the animals. No, oh no, Mr. Foster, I understand your concern, but you mustn't come along. We'll do this business my way. There now, your terrible ordeal is as good as over, isn't it? I'm so thankful I was here to help you out. So, now we see the man with the yellow hat. The man with the yellow suit. Think about Curious George. He is one sneaky little devil. Do you think that he knows that there's some kind of magical pond in the forest? Why does he want it? Magical spring? Excuse me. Why do you think he wants it that badly? My goodness, I'm reading this book way too late. It's going to be interesting to find out what happens over the next few chapters. I'll post your assignment tomorrow. It won't be much. We're kind of winding down this year, but I definitely want to finish this book. We'll probably read 2 or 3 chapters at least tonight, maybe 4, depending on the length of the chapters. I'm enjoying the book so far. I hope you guys are too. Look for your assignment tomorrow. Remember, don't read ahead, you sneaky little read aheaders. You. We're all going to read together. Again, I miss you guys. Hope you have a great night. See you soon. Bye.